welcome back to the Apartment 6 podcast. I'm Jess.
Yo, it's me, Marissa.
And today we're having a candid conversation about the future.
Wow.
Cue Billie Eilish.
Billie Eilish.
Cue Billie Eilish. I'm in love with my future. Basically, we're going to be recreating. This has happened a few times already on this podcast. We're like recreating a conversation we had organically yesterday.
It's a candid conversation based on an actual candid conversation.
Yeah. So like we were on a walk yesterday and we were talking about just like what we want in the future, what settling down would look like for us, when we want to do that, how we want to do it, where we want to do it. And I was just saying, when we were thinking about what to podcast today, I was like, what if we just like had a conversation like that, like everything about the future.
Yeah.
And so that's what we're doing today. But before we get into that, let's get into our roses and thorns. Marissa, girly,
Hit me.
What is your thorn of the week?
My thorn of the week is just that I had this very mundane task this week at work. Basically, we have this thing called the common server where some servers I think are actually a physical thing, if that makes sense. Like there's actually like a server that's like a computer looking thing that like houses all of our digital files. It's very confusing because like it's all digital stuff, but it's like the server apparently is in our office that we're having to vacate. So
the literal server. Okay.
Yeah, so my team, like all our stuff is on there, like past records of stuff, and we use it to this day with like present stuff.
I'm imagining like this like big like 90s looking,
I'm imagining like a black box,
or even like 80s looking, like really big computer.
So since we're moving offices and don't really know how that's going to work with this like server we apparently have, we decided to go ahead and move all of those files onto OneDrive. So we're moving all these files that were like on our computers and in this server to the like online drive.
Okay.
So pretty much all day, every day this past week, I have been clicking and dragging folders from my computer into this like online drive.
That sounds like it would hurt your fingers.
Yeah,
like, constantly.
Just so much like repetition of movement. Yeah. And it's so much stuff. So it's like I can't just like click and drag a whole like everything over at once and just wait for it to finish. Like I'm having to sit there and like make sure that every folder gets migrated, because like if I let it run too long, my computer will like time out and then it'll like lose the progress I've made.
Oh my gosh.
So I've had to like drag like smaller folders at a time and like watch and make sure that they get migrated and then move on to the next one. So it's like, in some ways it's nice because it's very like mindless work that I can like have a podcast on or have a YouTube video in the background or whatever. But yeah, it's been kind of making my eyes go crazy, like clicking and dragging folder after folder after folder.
Yeah.
So that's my thorn of the week. What is yours?
I don't have like a concrete one this week, but just that I am feeling kind of bored with my like life.
which is how we kind of got into the conversation that we're
I'm feeling kind of like, I don't know, like I was trying to get out some energy by going for a walk, and I felt like I returned from my walk like more restless and just like kind of upset because this area I really love like where we live, but my last relationship, like I formed a lot of memories around this area. So like going for a walk where I like would you normally go for a walk is now like walking past spots that I spent time with this person in. And even though I've also spent time with other people in my life in those spots, I don't know. I feel like I got into such a rhythm of doing like this big walk around like BC over the summer, and I met him in the summer. And So it really feels ingrained to me, like him in these spaces.
It's like attached to him, yeah.
Yeah. So like I go for a walk and I just end up feeling really restless and thinking a lot about the situation, and it just doesn't feel good. And I don't know. Just having some negative emotions this week. That's pretty much it.
That's thorny, if you ask me.
So what is your rose of the week?
My rose of the week is that I talked to my mom a ton.
I feel like you guys talked like every day.
So I ended up calculating it, and I think in this past week we've talked a total of like 5 to 6 hours.
Wow.
We like my mom and I, like, we keep in great touch. Like it's never a problem, but it's never this frequent. So yeah, it was just nice to feel like very in tune with her. Like I knew like everything that was going on at work and like everything she was thinking. I felt very connected to her this week, which was nice. What about you?
This is kind of a funny rose, but I love makeup and I love playing with makeup. And I've been doing more of that, and I've been doing some more testing for makeup at work. And I don't really love testing skincare as much as I love like skincare and that whole world. And I got more into skincare than makeup in the last few years. I find it overwhelming because you can't like see results instantly, and so it's hard to kind of review, and everyone has such different desires, like so everyone has like a different, you know, skin type and skin issues, and then they also have different outcome desires, and so it's like really hard to kind of explain. But makeup, it's like you tend to, if you're buying like this product and it's supposed to have a matte finish, then what you're expecting is a matte finish regardless of your skin type, regardless of whatever. So I find it like a really fun thing to test. And I also just this week dove into watching some videos of people, you know, showing different techniques for applying makeup and showing like, you know, 2016 trends versus 2021 trends on their face, and trying new launches. And it got me excited about makeup in a way that I haven't really been excited about it in a while, because I, you know, with the pandemic, haven't really been wearing it. And it got me like excited to think about playing with makeup and like incorporating some reviews on our site. And then it also got me excited about the prospects of doing some video content. My company launched its TikTok this past week. So I was like, oh my gosh, like this could be a fun way for me to like play with makeup again, is like if I offer to do some videos that are like makeup related for that or whatever. So it got me thinking about makeup in a creative way that was really like exciting to me. And then I was like, wow, I can't wait until we don't have to wear masks, or like I can't wait until, I don't know, even not to wear masks, but even just like how things were kind of last summer, but like this summer, like being vaccinated, like being able to maybe go out. Yeah. Like maybe being able to go outdoors and take your mask off when you're, you know, planted somewhere.
Yeah.
Like getting to actually like get a little dressed up or wear some makeup. It got me like excited.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Imagine if we had that as our transitions.
You know the one in Hannah Montana, it's like, ooh, ooh. Or she's like, yeah, yeah.
I was going to say there's one that's like, yeah, yeah.
Oh my gosh. We kind of like maybe one episode we should try that out.
That would be funny.
I think that would be freaking hilarious. Disney actually like has good transitions. Like I remember like even like Wizards of Waverly Place, I feel like they would do like these like yeah, like they would have like groovy music, and they would do like things like they would show things like a train like whooshing by or like whatever.
New York.
Good scenic transitions. I'm trying to think of like other shows, but yeah, they
for us doing a Boston based podcast, it would be like the screech of the tea. Like
all I would have to do is like get some gnat sound from outside Boylston.
Oh my god, the freaking Boylston tea.
But even now, like we still get the screeching of the tea.
I know, but it's faint enough from here that like sometimes I hear it and I'm like,
I think it's nice.
It takes me back.
Yeah, I like think it's nice.
It's like nostalgic. When you're nostalgic for public transportation sounds. Speaking of nostalgia, the opposite is the future.
There should be a word for that. Like,
yeah.
Like nostalgia is sort of this feeling of, I would say, looking back at the past or thinking about the past and getting like a warm and fuzzy feeling, or even like an excited feeling, sometimes a melancholy feeling. And I feel like there can very much be that for the future. Like you get sort of either like, oh, I'm so excited, or you get like warm fuzzy feelings about like what's to come, or you also can get a little like melancholy. So yesterday we were on a walk and we were talking about
a walk and talk, some may say,
the future. So you guys know that this podcast is called Apartment 6. Amazing, right? So we were talking about this apartment and like, what are we going to do when our lease is up? So backstory, not even really backstory, but our apartment place asks us in December if we would like to sign on for not the following year, but like, the year after.
So when we moved in September 2019,
yes,
we were asked that December 2019, if we would like our lease to be renewed past September 2020.
Right.
So
right.
After
so it's like
what is that? 3 months of living in the apartment.
Right.
You're asked if you want to. You already know you're going to be living in it until September of that year coming up, but then you're looking a year ahead of that.
Right.
It's
so
pretty crazy.
So like we move in September 2019, and they want to start showing the apartment in spring. If you're going to move out, they want to be showing it in spring so that those people can, see it in spring and then move in September. So this past December, we were asked, do you want to stay past September of 2021? So this upcoming September. And because it's a year-long lease beginning in September, we're basically in December 2020 signing on through August of 2022. So that's how it works. So we're locked into this place until a year from this September.
Mm-hmm.
And this September doesn't seem weird. Like we're like, oh my gosh, yeah, that's only 6 months away. That's going to like fly. But then like a whole other year on top of that. And the fact that like this upcoming December, so now it's like, like 9 months away, we have to decide again on this apartment, and you're deciding for a whole year ahead.
To be fair, I think that you could get another chance to decide maybe in like April. Like I think they ask us to decide in December, and they tell us like this is the way you'll be able to like
not have the rent go up
amount, or like a little increase or the same or whatever.
But I want to say the first year they said like otherwise we need to know by March 1st, and we were like, what is 2 months gonna do? Because it was true. Like they were like, if you renew by December 31st, we will keep your rent this price.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't, the rent might go up. Like we can't guarantee that it won't. And so we were like, well, what's going to change in 2 months?
Yeah.
So we've renewed twice now. So I was just kind of saying, I don't know that I'm going to want to renew on this place this upcoming December to be here all the way through August 2023. Like I was like, I just don't know. I like this apartment. I love this apartment. And I love this area, but I just feel like, I don't know, like, I mean, that'll be a full 4 years that we will have lived here. And I don't know if this is like, if I kind of want to like try living in another apartment, like not even necessarily like in a totally different area, but just in another apartment and seeing what else is out there, and like maybe try being in a different neighborhood and maybe being in something that's a little more flexible where you're not doing things a whole like year and a half ahead of time. And so I was just kind of telling Marissa that, to which she said,
I don't know what I said.
You said, I'm not surprised.
Oh yeah, well, because I didn't mean that in any sort of loaded way, but I just think like you've mentioned a few times that like you were interested in like different areas, and I think you are a lot more open. I mean, we'll get into this obviously, but I think you're a lot more open to like what's better out there and like trying a new thing than I am. So like you saying that, I was like, yeah, of course you don't want to stay put for another year. And
I may want to. I just don't know. It totally depends. Like I can't. That's what kind of kills me about this place. I know, people who have their leases, they're like, oh, like my lease is up in July, so like I have to decide by then. And I'm like, what? Like they don't necessarily know, like well, and I think that's like a cool thing. Like they get to decide, and like a month before they can kind of be like, no, I actually do want to renew. And then if they say no, then they just start showing people in the last month. And I think that makes so much sense. Like the fact that we had to see this place and agree to it and be completely written in stone, and then didn't move in until 6 months later, and then had to agree for another year before we even spent like more than before we even spent all the seasons in it. Like we hadn't even spent a winter in it. And I was like, well, what's going to happen in winter? Are all the bugs, or not the bugs, are we going to get mice? And like, you know, just, I've never loved that aspect of it, because I just feel like it doesn't leave room for like any flexibility. So that's kind of my thing, is like, I could see myself like in December being like, I don't necessarily want to sign on until 2023, but then being like, it's not that I necessarily am ready to leave. It's just that I don't want to be locked in for another year, like a year and a half.
Yeah, it would be cool if like it was a little more flexible than it is, in that like maybe in December we would be asked for the first time, and then it wouldn't be until maybe like May or April that we were asked again, and it was still an equal chance of like, okay, you're still totally fine to renew at this time, instead of it being like December or like March or whatever.
Yeah, like I feel like it should I just like, I can't believe like, had we not done it this December, we'd have to move out this September.
I know.
But because we did renew it, we're here until 2022. Like it's just kind of crazy.
It like messes with your mind too when you think about the years. It sounds like the future, like talking about the years like 2022 and 2023, like that, they don't sound like real years yet.
No, they don't. It's so crazy. Like 2021 doesn't even sound real to me.
It's finally starting to now, but yeah, I just feel like 2022, like what even is that? Is that like a spacecraft?
So yeah, I mean, I think I'm like rooted in Boston for a while longer, but I think like the pandemic has made me kind of itch to see other things, and like just like I want to know, like, are there other apartments in Boston that we would like more, or that I would like more? And like a lot of my friends moved in this past year, and I've been like, oh, I wish I was moving. Like that sounds fun. I want to have a new place, and like I want to like have a new area to explore or something. Not even like necessarily though, because it's like I would consider moving to like a neighborhood over. But yeah, I'm just kind of like jelly of people moving. Like I'm like, I want to do that. That sounds fun.
I could not relate less to that. The idea of moving is like remember we moved in and we were like, okay, remember we were like, we're gonna both stay in this apartment for life, and we're gonna marry our husbands, have them move into here, raise kids in here, because we were just like moving is
actual moving sucks. I'll say that.
Like the act of moving sucks so much that we were like, we're never doing this again.
Yeah.
Which obviously like
the actual
too young
days
to say that, but
the actual days of moving suck.
Yep.
But like having a new place and being so excited and decorating, it's so fun. But this couch like is what I think about when I think about moving. I'm like, this couch, because it was so hard for my dad and my brother to carry in here that I'm like, oh shit, they're gonna kill me. Like they're gonna be like, no, we're leaving the couch. I think that maybe if we moved, I would hire movers just for like the big stuff alone, because my dad's getting older. He's had a bad back. He's had back surgery. My brother is really strong, but I feel like I shouldn't use him for everything. And so I think maybe I would consider like, yes, it would be expensive, but hiring movers.
Yeah, I agree, because I'm in a similar boat with my dad, where like he has always been the one to help me, because like he has a truck, and he actually is recently retired from this job, but for the longest time he was like doing that sort of thing. Like he worked at a housing authority, so he was like moving people in and out of those like public housing kind of apartments, and it was just like very normal for him to help. But yeah, I feel similarly that like his back is really bad too, and it could just be worth it to put it in someone else's hands.
Yeah, well, it's like they're trained to do this, like, so they are kind of like, I remember like my brother is like pretty good with this kind of stuff, so he was like directing my dad. He was like, you have to pivot this way, swing the couch that way, blah blah. And I feel like they are like, this is like what they do, so they would be like, okay, let's take the couch cushions and put them over here, let's separate this couch, like it's like an L shape and you can like detach it so that it's in two pieces. And I feel like they'd be like, let's do that and blah blah blah, and like I'd be like, yes, queen.
The only thing is like I've always been this way. I don't know if it's like me being an only child or what, but I'm not very trusting of like other people with my things, even to the point where like I'm bad at like letting friends borrow stuff. Like I'm very like possessive of my stuff, so I almost feel like it would, I mean, obviously it would be worth it to like not have to do the physical labor for sure, but the idea of like having all my possessions like driven off by a stranger for me to like one day see again would definitely be like,
or like down the street.
Yeah, it would definitely be trying on my, I don't know, like,
well, they don't have to take all your little things, but
well,
like your furniture and whatnot.
I feel like if I were to move and hire movers, I would like I would like make sure I like hoarded the things that like were most valuable and personal to me, like certain books and records and like jewelry. But then I'd be like, where does the line stop?
You do realize like they're like a company. Like if they were stealing your shit, like you can sue them.
I know. But you never know what can happen. Things get slammed around. Like what if they took all my books and then they got slammed around in their truck and they came back all battered?
Part of them moving is they package, like they bring all the boxes and they like can package it all. And I don't know that I would like pay for that service. Like I'm fine packing up all my own stuff. Like I'm more interested in it for like moving the bigger pieces of things, and like you getting we don't have a vehicle in my family that like we would have to rent a U-Haul. But in this case, it's like it would kind of all be one part of it. But anyway, this isn't about, we're not moving. So, but yeah, so we started having this conversation about, I was saying, you know, like, what did I ask? I said, I feel like I asked you, like, where would you want to move in Boston?
That is how it really started. Yeah.
I asked you, like, what neighborhood, if you had to move somewhere in Boston, what neighborhood would you want to move to?
Yes.
And you were like, no.
Because I mean, we're very, very different, and like that's totally fine. But I feel like this is just interesting for the podcast because I feel like up to this point we've been kind of not showing off, because that's a weird phrase, but we've been like showcasing the things that we're very aligned on and like very in sync on. And I think that this in particular, just like thinking about change and moving and settling down versus like adventures and that kind of stuff, like that's a way that we're very different.
Yeah.
And like again, that's totally fine, but it's just funny because we don't tend to talk about our like differences.
Yeah, well, I think it makes us uncomfortable. Or at least I feel like it makes you uncomfortable for sure.
Yeah, it does, because it's just, I don't know, like I never want you to feel like I think either of us is right or wrong. Like I think we're different.
Yeah. But I asked you, like, where in Boston would you move if you had to? But it was funny because you were like, I won't have to.
I was like, don't put me in that situation.
Yeah, like, because I was just like, what? Basically asking, like, what's your favorite neighborhood? Like, it's kind of another way of asking that. Or, like, if you had to live in another neighborhood besides Brighton, like if Brighton was literally going to fall off the face of the earth, like, where would you move to? And you're like, I really don't want to move. I forget what you, but basically you were like, I don't really want to move. And so we started talking about like moving, and I was like, well, I don't know that I'm going to want to, you know, be in this apartment forever, which is, I know that you don't really want to move, and you know that I don't necessarily want to stay.
Yes.
That I'm very like up in the air about it.
Yes.
And so but it's hard too, because I also do love this apartment and I do like love our neighborhood. And yet I don't know. I think it's like getting shuffled around in college, like getting to move to college and then move dorms and move off campus. And then we got to pick a different, I got used to it. And I feel like I liked it. Like I liked, like we went to the same college, but I got to move around dorms. And that's kind of how I feel now. Like I'm in the same city, but I want to move around like neighborhoods, or I want to like move like around apartments and just like see like what else is out there. But we started talking about just how we feel about like our like what our next steps would be. And so we talked about, like I was saying, you know, one of the things that I might want to do is challenge myself to live alone, but I really like living with you. I really like living with friends. I think that's fun. Like particularly love living with you, but I think like living with friends in general also is like a fun idea. And I was like, and also it's way more affordable. And you were also saying that that's something you're interested in doing, is living alone. Like you could see that being your next step.
Yeah, I mean, so I think this conversation is like an extension of, like, so many people right now are talking about, like, what are you looking forward to doing when COVID is over?
Mm-hmm.
Like immediate future kind of stuff, like maybe later this year or whatever, or next year, when it's like those littler things where like you're probably going to be in the same spot in like the big ways, but what are like the littler things that you'd like to do, like going out to restaurants and maybe traveling and like those types of fun things. So I feel like this conversation is like taking that to like the next level, because it's like, what like life, like big life changes and moves are you like looking forward to? Like what excites you about like your future?
Do you feel like you'll definitely like, is living alone something you definitely want to do at some point, or are you kind of like,
yeah,
I would be down to like,
I definitely want to do it. And I think that again, it's like a difference in our personality types, because like for me, I'm like, I know that I would thrive in that, like, whereas you are like, I'd want to challenge myself to live alone. I'm like, I'm an introvert. Like I grew up as an only child. I grew up spending all my time alone. I mean, obviously I had family and like I wasn't like alone.
I grew up living in a hole alone.
I grew up living alone in a studio at 5 years old. No. But I just like, I my kind of like homeostasis is being alone. So yeah, I think I would enjoy it, and I definitely want to do it. And I think the tough part is like with any of the things that we're talking about, I think for us, since we're both like monogamous and want to like get married eventually and like raise families eventually, it's hard to know how many years you have left to like do the things you might want to do alone before you meet the partner and then like become attached to them and can no longer like make your own independent decisions. So I'm kind of like if I knew basically that at like 30 I was gonna like meet, or not even meet, but maybe like that's when I want to like move in with my boyfriend or partner or whatever, I would be like, okay, then I can subtract from there and be like, okay, then I want to live alone from like 28 to 30. And then that means that like I'm living with friends until I'm 28.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, you can't, if you have certain things, like if I know I want to live alone for sure, I'm like, if I don't do that at like 27, is that going to be the year I meet my partner? And then I never have the chance to live alone.
I guess that's why I ask you, like, I feel like we've talked about this conversation as like me being the person who decides things, because I'm like the one who would be like, okay, like I want to do something else.
Like a change initiator. Yeah.
But it's like, you've said that you want to live alone, and like now you're saying you definitely want to for sure.
Yeah.
So it's like, it could be you. Right?
It could be me.
Or I guess that's what I'm trying to like ask you, like, is it like you would like, if I was like, I want to move to Timbuktu, and so you were like, okay, now I'm gonna live alone then.
Mm-hmm.
Or is it kind of like, you'll live with me as long as I'm here and down to live here, and then if your partner comes along, then you would be happy to move from here to there? That was that. I don't know why that's so challenging to word for some reason, but like, do you know what I'm asking, right?
I guess is what you're asking, like, do I want to live alone so badly that I want to make sure that like that is my next step?
Yes, like that you would like go out of your way to be like, I don't want to renew this lease because I need to make sure I can live alone for at least a few years or something like that.
The place that I think I'm at, which like this could change, and this is like very this is like very real life, like personal. Like we could be having this conversation off the podcast.
Yeah, we truly could. But this is the thing. We always have conversations
Yeah.
not on the podcast. And then we're like, that would have been nice to have on the podcast.
I hope people like it. It's very honest. I feel like I'm being very honest. But I kind of feel like, again, this could change, but right now I'm kind of thinking that like if you didn't want to renew this lease, then instead of just moving to a new place with you, I would strongly consider moving to a new place by myself.
Got it.
But would be like happy to stay here with you, if that makes sense.
Right. So it's either like stay here or most likely live alone.
I think so. Yeah. As in like living alone would be the next step, whether that's like the next step after this apartment, whether that's in a couple years or in a year or whatever. But I think right now I'm feeling like that might be my desired like stepping stone away from here.
Yeah.
But again, that could change. Like we said, we're talking like way into the future.
We're talking December.
Well, that's true. Yeah, we're talking December. But again, that's what makes it so hard because like we're deciding in December, but the like phase of life that we're deciding about is so much further away than that.
I guess we also could just not say anything in December and wait until the later date.
Yeah, which I think is probably what we'll end up doing.
Which is frustrating because then they might be like, okay, then your rent's going up $200.
I know.
And then I'm going to be like, well, let me see what, I can get for this amount of money then somewhere else.
Totally.
I'm happy with this apartment and what I pay for this apartment. But it's like, if rent's going to go up by hundreds of dollars, it's like, well, can I get a place within unit laundry? Can I get a place closer to to my work? Can I get a place closer to the city?
Yeah.
So the other thing that we were talking about is just like our differences in what we like want out of the next foreseeable future until we like settle down.
Yeah.
And like what settling down looks like.
Again, I wish we knew the number of years we had until then. But
right.
We don't.
That's sort of, so like, okay, so explain how you feel about it. Like how you were saying, I thought this was so interesting yesterday. You were saying like, if I could settle down right now, I would.
Yeah. I'm very boring.
It's like, not boring.
I think it's boring. It's not very spicy of me. I am someone who hates change, doesn't like to be excited. I really, really like things to stay the same, and like I value consistency and like reliability, and just like I would be happy for like all my days to be the same for the rest of my life, basically. So I was saying to Jess that like
that's what you said that really wowed me.
Yeah, like I feel at this point that like if my future hubs met me tomorrow and the ball was rolling and we were settling down and it was time to just like buy a home, start a family, like I'm like fine and ready to do that right now.
You ready to have children right now?
I guess not. It's more like I'm not.
The lifestyle, you mean?
Yeah, I'm ready for the sameness.
Okay.
Like I'm ready for life to be the same. Like I don't feel, I think a lot of people in their 20s especially are like, I need to do, and we'll get into this with you because I want to ask you too. A lot of people in their 20s are like, I have a list of things that I want to either accomplish professionally or for fun. Like they might want to reach a certain point in their career before they want to have a family. They might want to see certain parts of the world before they have a family. They might want to have, single gal in their 20s experiences before they start a family. Like, any sort of like fun, adventurous things like that. And I am just someone who like I don't have that like desire to go on adventures before I can no longer go on adventures.
I feel like having a kid will be a huge adventure though.
That's true. Yeah, in a different way. But I've never been, anytime I've like talked about travel or anything, it's always been in the context of like someone else, where like someone else is like we should go on a trip to here. And I'm authentically like, yes, that would be fun. But I'm never going to be the person who's like, I want to organize a trip here and like ask someone else. So yeah, that's like where I'm at, I guess, with like my adult life. Like I don't know how rare it is to be this way, because I do feel like a lot of people are not this way. Like I think a lot of people are the type that are like, I want to travel, I want to do this. I have all these things I want to check off and do. But yeah, I'm just not. I'm just me.
I'm just me.
All I can do is be little old me. But you had like some different desires and a different perspective on it.
Yeah, I feel like I haven't traveled enough to be like, I love traveling. And like, I don't even think I do love traveling. I think like it gives me anxiety and whatnot, but I want to see things regardless. Like I want to go to Europe, and I have like some things on my bucket list there. I love history, so I really want to like go learn about some European history. I'd love to do like some haunted stuff.
Of course.
Like I want to go to the Paris catacombs, and I want to eat food from, you know, different countries, and I want to just like take in the history. And I also really want to go on like a tropical vacay. I want to like swim with sharks and turtles, and I just like love like feeling warmth on my skin and swimming and getting to do things that feel sort of like luxurious to me, because like swimming feels luxurious to me because I don't get to swim. Like when do I get to swim? Like when you swim in the Atlantic Ocean, it's freezing. I don't love lakes, and I don't get to, you know, spend a lot of time in other bodies of water. So, and like I don't know anyone who has a pool. So I just like the idea of like getting to go on a vacation where I just get to like swim and bathe in the sun and like drink lots of lemon water and like eat snacks, and I just like that just sounds, and like have good conversation and go to bed tired from being in the sun all day. Like that sounds so yummy to me. And so like I just want to do things like that. And I guess I sort of feel like once I have a family, that will turn into like such an expense and like so much time that like we'll have to go into planning it and preparing for it. And while I would love to also help my children experience those things, I'm like, well, move over. Mama's going to experience it first. So I feel like I sound like so like dependent on like a man. Like I'm like, oh, like when I finally get to like meet this person, I'll do this. It's like, that's not how I mean it. I just like I'm not like counting down my days until I meet a guy. Like it's not like that.
I know. I think you're right. I think we're both kind of coming across that way, that it's like I don't think we want it. It might be, but I don't think we want it to come across as like, how do we want to bide our time until we find our husbands?
Yeah, like that is how it sounds.
Yeah.
And I don't want it to sound like that. It's just that I plan to have kids regardless of whether or not I have a guy.
Yeah, it's more like what do we, or don't we, I guess in my case, want to do before we just settle down as a general concept.
Right.
Not
like
specifically a man.
Yeah, because like I said, I plan to, you know, my goal is to at some point own a home and to have kids. And, you know, I'd like to also like meet someone to like share life with, but I want to have kids regardless. So it's kind of just like starting a family in any case. And yeah, I mean, I have like some desires to live in other cities, but I don't know for sure like if I want to do that, because I don't know that it completely makes sense with my job being in Boston and me enjoying having my job in Boston, and it wouldn't really make sense to necessarily live in another city. And you know, so I have like some career goals that I would like to achieve, and I also am open to those changing over time as like the world changes and, you know, new technology is developed and things like that. So I think like for me, I do want to settle down, but I do feel like I have this desire to do certain things or see certain things or like become new versions of myself in a way before doing it.
Yeah, that's kind of an interesting take on it too. Like that it's not only about the different things and places that you might see, but it's also about the different ways you might feel about like your identity, like who you are as a person.
Yeah.
I feel like I could see this being like my final resting place as a person.
The apartment 6.
No, like me, like who in terms of like self-identity, like the way I feel now, like
this. I thought you meant like this apartment couch, is your final resting place.
This
I was
couch
like,
is my final resting.
I was
place.
like, damn, okay.
No, final resting place is a really weird way to say it, but I'm thinking about what you just said about like being different versions of yourself before you reach like I guess the final one, which that's a whole concept too, because like you can be old and reinvent yourself and become a different person. So yeah, I mean there's no way that the person I am now is the person I'm going to be forever, but I do just kind of feel that way right now in this moment, that like I don't see myself having like any crazy new experiences or anything before I'm like settled down.
You know, like there's certain experiences you go through that change you. But that's kind of the thing, is that like there's the experiences you make for yourself, which is what I'm sort of talking about. Is like I want to go out there and make certain experiences for myself that'll like add to my
je ne sais quoi.
Well, I like almost like add to like my portfolio almost. Like it's like there are certain things that I have done up until this point. Certain ways that I've challenged myself, taken risks, gone out there and stuck my neck out to get something or to do something. And they've made me think about things differently. They've opened up doors for me that otherwise I don't think I would have ever like knocked on. You know, like going to LA for those 3 months was something I was really scared to do. But had I not done it, I don't think I would ever even think about, or I don't think I would necessarily be able to think seriously about potentially living somewhere far, because it would have been so scary to me. Like now I kind of feel like if I went back to college, I would want to study abroad in Europe. But at the time I was so scared to do it. I was like, I can't be that far away. And yet I still went across the country, which is also a 6-hour plane ride. But it's like there was something comfortable. That was like the limits through which I was comfortable going with like my anxiety and whatnot. And so now I'm kind of like, now I wouldn't be so scared if an opportunity arose and I, you know, were to live somewhere else for a short period of time. And so there's like, there's certain experience I've created for myself that have made me feel different or have made me feel more confident or whatever. And have also just been like, oh, now I have this cool story I can tell, or now this is a thing that I've experienced that has just added. It's kind of like when you like learn vocab words in school. I remember just being like, I can use these now. Like I know what these mean, and like I could just add more. So it's like that's how I kind of feel about my life. I have certain experiences that have just added to like my repertoire of things to pull from when I have a story to tell or an idea or whatever. Then there's experiences that you don't mean to create. And so those things also shape your character. So no matter what you like, you're going to change as a person. But I guess like I'm saying like there are certain ways I want to change myself as a person, whereas you're like, I'm willing to let change just happen to me.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Do you feel like COVID has like impacted this thinking in you? Like, do you think you would like if we were sitting here having this conversation totally regardless of COVID, like COVID did not exist, do you think you'd feel like the exact same way you feel now? Or do you think that like being stuck here with COVID has like impacted the things you want to do?
It's hard to say like how much of a role COVID has played in it, because I just don't even know how I would have felt without it. But also because like in a way, like I'm like, how have our lives even changed? Like ours. But then I remember like, oh yeah, we used to go to offices every day. Like we used to like get up and like leave each other for like leave each other. We sound like little twins that are like, no. But like we used to, you know, go to work for whole days, and we used to see friends on weekends, and we used to, you know,
go on dates,
go to like new areas. Like yeah, like we used to do more, but it's like we're so far in that at this point I'm like, no, like we still, like we went to Target yesterday. Like that's something we would have done before. And like
That's the pinnacle of fun.
yeah, I'm like we're home, but like we spent time at home before, and we're still doing our same job. So there's a lot of ways that I almost am like gaslit into thinking that my life was never anything more than this.
Yeah.
Which is a really weird thing.
Yeah.
But I think I was already kind of curious about like moving apartments and whatnot. Well, I don't even know prior to COVID, but we were only in this apartment for a few months. I think it's just because I like, that's just my personality. Like I'm always like, ooh, what are they doing? Or, oh, what are they wearing? Oh, they went to this place. All right, I want to do that. Like that's just how I am. I have like a very wandering mind where like I may love what I'm doing and how I'm doing it and everything, and then I see someone else do it and I'm like, no, I want to do it that way.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know, it's just like
You have like a dreamy,
very daydreamy.
Yeah.
Very daydreamy.
Yeah.
So like I think like COVID has made me maybe a little more like stir crazy, or it's brought out things that I've just sort of been like, yeah, let's change. Like I don't know. You know, it's polarized things, I think. Like it's kind of made certain things more obvious to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, the grocery thing. Like I was like, oh, I hate carrying my groceries. They're so heavy. Like because I stopped taking public transportation to go get them. And then
it's like we're getting more stuff because we're having more meals at home.
Right. And it's like just like little things about like keeping this apartment clean, or I don't know, like or just like space. Like I'm like, oh my God, we have no space. I'm like, we need another closet. Like, or, you know, doing laundry, you know, having our washer and dryer break in the last year and having to go to the laundromat. Like there's just little things that for some reason became more annoying to me over time. And I feel like I was more aware of them because maybe I didn't have a lot of other things going on in my life.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily things all, like I just gave examples about the apartment, but it's not even necessarily things about the apartment. It can be like just like ways I'm living. Like, yeah, I don't know. Like it can just be like things that I'm like, if I had this tool or if I had this different thing, like it would be a different situation.
Yeah. I mean, we really are like getting our money's worth of this apartment.
Yeah, that's so true.
I'm glad that we are in a place that like we weren't like, it wasn't like we were like settling for this place or like, we don't really like it, but it's in our budget, so we'll get it. Like I'm glad this is a place that like we genuinely fell in love with, because like, my goodness, we have like sucked the life, not sucked the life out of it, but we just have like, if you don't like where you're living during COVID, that's like the toughest position you could be in, because that's where you're in all the time.
So true.
But I don't know. I just asked because I've been thinking about like just like how COVID affects, if it changed the course of anyone's life, like if it changed. Obviously there are people who have been like way more affected by it than we have, in terms of like losing loved ones or having to relocate because of like a job loss or things like that. So those are like very obvious concrete ways that COVID kind of like uproots your life. But I'm just thinking about like the path that we were on as people before COVID. Is it a continuous line, or did COVID kind of like turn it a little bit?
I don't think COVID has made me unhappy in any of my, like it hasn't been like, now I hate my job because I have to do it at home, or now I hate this apartment, or now I hate the fact that I don't have a car even more, or like whatever. I mean, well, maybe that one, but like I don't think it's, or I hate this neighborhood suddenly. Like if anything, it's made me love some of those things more. Like I do genuinely love our apartment and like love this neighborhood, love living with you, love my job. Like it's made me really appreciate everything I've had. Yeah. But it does kind of make me sort of like, ooh, like let's get back out there and see what else we got. Or just like, it makes me just like crave adventure. And for me, adventure is like not necessarily like, you know, flying in a hot air balloon, but like moving. I don't know. this is such a candid conversation because we don't have any like definitive thing to say.
I know.
It's just like these are some thoughts on our minds and we thought you might want to hear them because this is literally what our podcast is titled.
I think that this episode is the most maybe what we thought the podcast would be going into it. Because like we have always said, like we have these like good conversations all the time. We like talk about real stuff, and it's like if only the mics were rolling to capture it.
If only.
Like, I think that this episode is the most like that we've ever had.
Yeah, we usually like when we have conversations, we often do like ask each other questions.
Yeah.
And ask like follow questions and
yeah.
I feel like normally we might say like I feel like we're kind of on guard.
Yeah.
Like you can kind of feel that. Like I feel like we were more, for some reason the word fluid comes to mind. Like we just kind of like let things flow. Like yesterday, like we were, talking about, like we literally like named like towns and neighborhoods and things yesterday of where we'd want to go. And like you were talking about like, what if I moved back to the suburbs and blah, blah. And
yeah, it's like obviously like we can be as candid as, like we can try to be candid in the podcast, but like when you're speaking into a microphone and like your words are being like recorded to listen to later, it's obviously different than just like throwing them out into the ether.
And I feel like we're both like we understand each other, I think. but I feel like we're both afraid of being misunderstood by people listening. Yeah. So we feel the need to over explain ourselves when we already kind of know what we mean.
Yeah. That's true.
Like I feel like I have to overly explain. No, I really do love this apartment. Yes, I really am grateful. No, I'm really not sure. I'm not saying that I definitely want to move, or no, I'm not. Like I feel like I keep having to exaggerate the point.
Yeah, this is like what like YouTubers do in videos where they're always like apologizing for the same thing.
And you're like, shut up.
In their case, it's because they always probably get the same negative comments. But like, luckily, no one's actually ever given us a reason to think we need to like over explain or defend ourselves.
Until now, maybe we'll get bullied on this episode. But do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do.
Like, that I'm not saying I want to move.
Yeah. Yeah. And the thing that I feel like I'm trying not to over explain is that like I don't think it's a bad thing that you want to do certain things and I don't.
Yeah, like you talk about yourself as like you're like I'm boring, like I'm,
Yeah, because
blah,
I do
blah,
think that objectively like it's way more normal to like, and that's something that I'd love if maybe anyone who feels similar to me could like reach out and share that, because I do feel like it's way more talked about that people like want to do things. Like I don't think it's the most normal that I'm like, yeah, I don't really have anything that I want to do. So because of that, it's hard for me to like feel good about that and feel okay about that. But
yeah, I'm somewhere in like a weird in between, because like I know that people have said like, yeah, I'd love to like do a stint in Europe. Like I want to live somewhere in Europe. And I'm like, I don't.
I know.
And like people will be like, and I want to like backpack through Europe. And I'm like, I don't.
I know.
And like there are just like a lot of things that people will be like, I want to like jump out of a plane, and like no, like there are so many things that people are like
some
want
people
to
are
do.
So adventurous.
Yeah.
It's like mind-blowing.
Or like people like, dating apps freaking kill me, because everyone's like, I want to try that.
Back to dating.
First of all, people always, it's like weirdest or greatest travel story, and it's always something so annoying. Like it's always something like,
that's so true. They're
it's something
like, I got my stuff stolen. In a
someone
camel.
is always like getting mugged, or like I think that's the most annoying prompt, because it just like bleeds elitism to me. Yeah. Because for some reason, like it's never the people answering that have just like gone on like one or two family vacations out of the country. It's people who have like traveled their entire lives, and I'm like, that's so fucking great for you. I'm holding up a middle finger, like I'm so happy for you, but like I never got to do any of those things, like we couldn't afford it. Bye. Like, and I don't know, it makes me like, okay, maybe this is a me problem. If anyone it disagrees with me, that's like totally fine. But
no, I think your point is very valid, that like I also think like because I'm so like, you just told me not to call it boring, but boring. I think that like the things that you want compared to me might seem like you're being like way more adventurous or whatever, but like when you compare it to the people who want to do the things you just listed, it's like you're not looking for anything like wild and crazy.
No, like I literally just like want to learn some history and then like come home and sleep in my own bed.
Yeah.
But also like I like okay, so I think what annoys me about the people on Hinge who do the best travel or the worst, I don't know, what is it?
Sometimes
it's like
it's best travel story, but sometimes they also creep up in like two truths and a lie,
okay, yeah.
where
And
one of the items is like, I got mugged in Turkey.
and it's specifically, it's not like best travel story as in like I enjoyed the most amazing meal with my family or
Yeah.
I got to see this thing. It's always like something crazy.
Yeah.
And my thing is like the fact that you've traveled enough to even have something crazy like that happen to you is what makes me angry.
Yeah,
like
that's
I'm
so
like
true. Because like most people will go through their lives, like even if they have some travel experience, it's not gonna be
right.
the crazy story.
It's like if something is like a 1 in a million thing, you have to have done it at least a million times. Okay.
Yeah,
whoa.
no,
I don't know how
I see what you mean. Like you have to do it enough times to have something crazy pop up.
Exactly. Thank you. Yes. I think I kind of said that and then I
Not
like
that you couldn't go on a first ever trip to Turkey and get mugged. Like maybe you could.
so like I'm more adventurous than you or I'm more adventure seeking
Yes.
than you.
Yes.
And yet I am not nearly as adventurous as some people. Like I have some people just want to hike every weekend, then catch a flight to, you know, Dubai and then, you know, whatever. Like, I don't know. People just, they want to go on crazy adventures and see things and really push themselves. And I'm like, oh, that sounds so exhausting.
Yeah, I think that like our dynamic, even though again it's like hard for me and maybe for you too to like acknowledge our differences, I think it's good that like maybe we can help bring out the other thing in each other.
Why do you think it's so hard for you to acknowledge our differences?
I think it's not just you. I think it's anybody. Like I'm always someone who I would much rather feel the same way as whoever I'm talking to than feel any differently. Even if it's not like a hot button topic, like even if it's just like they like, you know, American cheese and I like Swiss cheese. Like I'd rather just like the American cheese.
Is that true? I like both.
I like both too. That's weird that that's the first.
But
thing
if I were to
that
like
pops in
pick
my
a
head.
cheese, like I like American cheese.
If I were to pick a cheese, I'd go a little off the beaten path and choose Asiago.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I'm a little lamb.
Do you feel like
want to follow?
Do you feel like it's a fear of rocking the boat, or do you think it's a fear that if you disagree with someone, then they're gonna be like, well, why? And they're gonna like really put you on the spot and make you feel like, is it like an insecurity thing where you feel like you don't like you don't feel rooted in your decision or your choice, and so you're afraid people are gonna like ask you about it and you're gonna have to defend it?
I think that's very true. Like, but I think that's because I'm uncomfortable explaining myself.
Yeah.
Even if I have like a core belief or a core thought or desire or something that like to me makes perfect sense, if someone was like, I'm going to need you to explain that, I'd be like, I don't know how.
Yeah.
So there's that. And then I don't know. Me saying that like I'd want to live alone after this apartment like immediately makes me think like, is that going to make Jess think that like I don't want to live with her? Like I worry about like the way that the things I say might like come out of my mouth and then go into someone's brain a different way than I mean them.
Well, it's hard because it's essentially like you kind of telling me, like it's kind of an ultimatum, because it's kind of like me being like, okay, so I either stay here or I don't get to live with you.
Yeah.
So it's like then it puts the onus back on me to have to choose. Well, would I rather stay in this apartment?
Yeah.
Or would I rather not live with Marissa?
Yeah, that's true. And that's why like voicing the things I want like that is so hard, because like again, it would be much easier if like if I was like, Jess, what do you want? And you were like, I want this. And I was just like, okay, me too. Like that's always easier, right? Like it's always easier to follow and to agree.
Yeah.
So that's why it's hard for me to like say what I want.
Right. So then I guess what I was trying to ask, like, so if I were to be like, yeah, I'm good with staying in this apartment, like, at what point would you be like, okay, well, now I want to live alone, so no.
I don't know.
Like, at what point would you cut me off? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I don't know if I ever would.
I guess that's what I was asking, was like, how bad do you want to live alone? Like, do you want to live alone bad enough to be the person to tell me, no, I don't want to. I don't want to renew.
I want to live alone bad enough that if we're moving anyway, like if it's like we're definitely moving and it's either to another place together or I'm going to try living alone. If I'm making a move, like a life change anyway, I want the change to be to living alone.
Right.
But I don't necessarily feel like I need to make the life change. So if it's not going to happen anyway, I'm good to stay where I am.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, you're right. Like if you didn't say, I don't want to stay here, then I probably wouldn't say I want to live alone.
Yeah.
So like you being like, okay, let's kind of think about making a change is what makes me like, okay, what's the change that I want to make then?
Right. TBD on whether we make a change. But the podcast might be over by then. I mean, we don't know. That's another thing in the future. But like, you know, by the time we actually were to make the change.
Yeah.
It's like,
will
we have a podcast?
Yeah,
Who
I mean,
knows?
The thing we keep saying is like we're talking about like years from now in terms of like when that change might actually take effect.
And things can change.
And just like, I don't know, no matter what, like we'll always be best friends, like we'll always love each other. I don't know, I'm like, I don't know.
You like worked yourself up into a state.
I know. I'm just all like, I don't know.
That was so nice.
But it's true. Like, I don't know. Even if like we don't move somewhere after this together, like we're still going to be best friends. Like we're not talking about like, when's the
to end the friendship or not?
Expiration date for this friendship? Yeah, like it's not.
We signed our friendship on the dotted line when we signed this lease.
Yeah, like lease equals friendship.
We're faking it for the lease and for the podcast.
No.
For all the money that we're getting for them.
All the benefits that we're raking in.
Should we stop making jokes about not making money from the podcast? Does everyone know? Hey, you guys, tap tap tap. Is it clear to you all that we are fine with not making money? Okay, thanks. That's all I needed. If you said yeah, we get it. I feel like I need to stop talking because I'm not making any sense.
I'm not either, and also my mouth is dry.
Thanks for listening, everyone. We hope you've enjoyed this candid conversation about the future of our living situation and what we want and settling down. And let us know if what you think we should do. Like should
we put up a poll for
like
our lease? Let
us know. So
we
have until December to decide whether this friendship is out the door.
No, it's not true.
Okay, we love you all.
I'm gonna vomit.
Goodbye.
Love you. Bye.